Well, thank you very much, Amanda, and thank you, colleagues. It is wonderful to see that we have come, all of us, to the agreement that we need to keep seeing each other, and there is this common understanding that these spaces are relevant and needed. Now, what we need to come to terms with is how do those spaces look like and what do those spaces do? And if you ask me, there are several aspects that we need to consider. What we are trying to offer, and this comes from a very long-standing relationship between the civil society organizations that join us today and United Cities and local governments as inheritor of the 100-year-old municipal movement. Um, from a long-standing relation around the habitat processes, where we were negotiating with national governments and we were trying to influence national governments. Sometimes we were going separately with our messages, and we discovered that if we did it together, we could come much further. And we discovered how together we could actually manage to include notions such as right to the city in the text, etc. We started with this process, and I very much agree with Michael. Movement starts with relationships, with trust, with doing things together. And we have now that relationship. And what we want to offer is two things. One, we would like to integrate our ideas. We would like civil society to continue influencing the constituency of local and regional governments. Is not the like-minded local and regional governments that we are bringing to the table with United Cities and local governments. It's all of them, and this is to Olivier that was saying that sometimes you don't know who to talk to. In here, what we are trying to do is to bring all of them with over 250,000 members around the world. Is not only the like-minded that you need to address, you need to also have an entry to bring others to the table. And that's what we are trying to create. So it means influencing each other. Not everybody has the same views on human rights. Not everybody has the same views around critical things like access to food and the role that the urban era needs to play, and urban spaces in the food system, for instance. But we can influence each other, because at the end of the day, what is really true, whether you are an exemplary local government or not, is that you are interested in meeting the demands of your citizens. And that role as safeguards of the dreams of the communities is what brings us together. So first of all, an entry to these shared views for the special rapporteurs. Also, an access to a specific constituencies, and local governments is one of them, and obviously organized civil society is the other. But also, beyond a space where we share experiences, is also a space, I would say, to shape policies. I very much agree with the notion that we are in a crisis of care, a time where we acknowledge that we are living in continuous crisis, and many of them we have not even recognized as such. We have not acknowledged a housing crisis as a true emergency. We have not acknowledged inequality as a true emergency. And they are the very reason why we are facing and we are having the difficulties that we're facing today with this yet new crisis, which is a global pandemic, which is not the first one, by the way, and it will not be the last one. And that's something that we need to work on together. So how do we ensure that that we bring understanding on expectations and transformation closer to each other? And that we make the international community understand, and actually the national governments understand, that the capacity for transformation, the power, the transformational power has shifted. Is no longer at national government level. Is no longer there. It doesn't mean that national government does not have a role to play? Of course it does. A very important role to play. It needs to help us protect the commons, which is also something that all of you have highlighted. All of you have been calling for governmental measures to protect, to care, to foster transformation. And I think if we align those notions and test the renewal ideas in platforms like this one that we're trying to shape, it will be extremely important. We might change the minds of some of our members. I have to be very frank with you, that do not see their policies driven by human rights. However, I do think that we are at a point where we are understanding how important it is to no longer accept inequalities. I was saying not such a long time ago, inequalities has not been always on purpose, but it has been accepted for a very long time. And if you maintain that kind of notion, then that transformational potential that human rights have go missing in a way, right? And so I think that fora like the one that we are trying to foster in this dialogue can help us shift that perception. Um, I would also like to highlight the issue of breaching. I think on the one hand, this space with civil society for my own organization, United Cities and Local Government, is helping us understand a new type of accountability, an accountability that goes hand in hand with trust and co-creation. It relates to this notion that our HIC colleagues were putting through, which is plurilateral relations, and that we in the constituency of local and regional governments like to say, going from an international system to an inter-urban system, and a system of cities where intermediary cities, like Billy was saying, play a very important role. So if you ask me, we have a lot of common ground to explore that goes beyond the examples, beyond exchanging practices. It is about developing a strategy together, and even going into the tactics about how to influence the G7 and the G20, how to influence the dialogues that the United Nations are having. I'm not talking about the Secretariat. Look, the way the world and the system of the United Nations has reacted to the pandemic is totally different to the very core of the United Nations, which is the Security Council. How long did it take them to accept the resolution? If we are able to develop this kind of dialogue, to put wording together that we can all embrace and own, I trust we can actually shift policy making, and some of these issues that I have mentioned and that you have brought about in the discussion are just the embryo of the transformation that we need to promote to change the relationships between the government and the people, but also the relationship between the people and the planet. And something that has not come up in the discussions, but I think we need to look at, beyond the human rights, we have a very powerful framework around the SDGs, which we feel can be a very good basis for a new social contract, which in my organization, we're calling it the Pact for the Future, but it's only a pact for the future if the communities are the drivers behind it, and if we manage to put into that pact the wording of the civil society organizations as the roadmap for subnational governments to commit to. So I have very high hopes about this, and I would like to thank especially HIC and a platform on the right to the city for trusting us, for going into this experience, the cities are listening experience, which is the result of a longer process, our town hall. I think it has the potential to have a very long life, and now with new actors such as the special rapporteurs. Our doors are open, and when I say ours, it's both civil society organizations and local governments. We'll come back to you with concrete proposals. And Rocio, don't worry. We will make sure that we don't have too much time in between these deliberations. Colleagues, I think I am done, but if anybody else would like to bring other things in, please feel free. It was so rich. I have too many notes. I cannot cover them all. Thank you.